Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
You are about to listen to the Totally Super Awesome 80s Reboot Overdrive podcast.
This podcast is our fan tribute to the Incredible Hulk TV show. Be advised it has been exposed to radiation and we caution to listen at your own risk. You have now entered GammaCast.
Hello and welcome once again to the GammaCast. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me once again is my skinny...
Mozz.
Oh, sorry? Mozz.
Jumped the gun there.
Yeah. Mozz, my skinny rich friend. Sorry. I always gotta call you that, because, you know, that's our thing, man.
Yeah, that harkens back to a funner time when me and Charlie used to do sketch comedy together.
Yeah, and hey, you're still my skinny rich friend. Okay, so tonight's episode is The Slam. Episode 4, Season 3, first aired October 19th, 1979. David is thrown into the slammer for vagrancy and stealing an apple. As prisoner 1124, he soon finds out the sheriff and the warden are making money by forcing the inmates to do hard labor for local farmers. Director is Nicholas Correa, and the writer was Nicholas Correa. Interestingly enough, Nicholas also wrote Brainchild last week. This was a pretty fun episode. What did you think, Mozz?
I really love this episode. It starts off with like him just being basically blackmailed and sort of kidnapped, and I don't know. It was a really, really fun episode. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this is, you know, it's interesting to see Nicholas Correa actually wrote both these episodes, because the previous episode, Brainchild, which I did with 80s Music Girl, you know, who will be joining us from time to time. I actually want to try and get all three of us on a podcast, because I think we'll all do really good together. You know, but you know, the episode last week was it started off real strong and then kind of petered out because, you know, there just wasn't much for the Hulk to do. This one, I mean, this is just a real Hulk. This is a really good Hulk episode where we really see the Hulk doing good things.
And really, really fun Hulk outs. Like, the situations that lead him to become the Hulk are really, really fun.
Yeah, although horribly inconsistent as always. And honestly, that inconsistency of the Hulk is just so problematic for me at times. So, to give us a sense of what's going on, our episode opens up with David being driven by the local sheriff to the what do you call it?
Work camp.
Yeah, the work camp. And he's been arrested for stealing an apple and trespassing and just general vagrancy, basically not having a place to be, which is illegal. And hey, that's what they got Rambo on. Never forget that. It worked out about as well for these cops as it did for those that took out Rambo.
Yeah.
So in this case, what has happened is David he's a little upset because but you know, for what it's worth, they're dropping him off. He's in the front seat. It's like all real casual, you know. It's like, you know,
it's almost like they're like giving him the choice to do it, you know. It's like saying we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And David's such a mild-mannered guy. He's like, you know what? We'll take the easy way.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is an easy way, hard way. Although, you know, not for nothing, this is also a guy with a Hulk in his pocket. So it's also,
Right.
I know he doesn't want to turn into the Hulk, but you know, here's the thing, and this is one of the things about this series that is always kind of this weird sticking point, because yes, you know, he doesn't want to turn into the Hulk. He doesn't know what he'll do as the Hulk. But at some point, he's got to be sitting there saying, dude, you do know I turn into a Hulk, you know? You do know I'm not really afraid of you.
That's what's interesting. It's like such an interesting take on life to be able to have. Having the confidence to just go with the flow with any situation. And I started thinking, why is he just allowing himself to be strong-armed here? Why doesn't, his emotions get the best of him? Why doesn't he Hulk out and just get the hell away from this situation? But since he knows he will more likely be able to get rid of any situation he's in, he just rolls with anything until the Hulk comes and saves him, Yeah. It's interesting. He kind of sets up like a damsel in distress type of situation with him every time, where he's the princess, has to get himself caught, and then the Hulk has to come and rescue him.
Yeah. Your David Banner is in a different castle. Yeah, it is very fascinating how it does play out. So basically, when we open up, David, he's being dropped off at the jail. He's seeing prisoner 1068, if I recall correctly, being taken out of the hot box. His name is Blake, and he is our cool hand Luke. This is, as we say, all these episodes, they do tend to have this theme where they look at something that's in the zeitgeist and do a Hulk episode. Like, well, what if Hulk was in this? Like the last episode, it was what if the Hulk was in Flowers for Algernon, which was pretty cool. And this was, what if Hulk was in Cool Hand Luke? And it did play nicely. He gets to meet this guy Burke, who is basically the camp troublemaker, who is tough as nails and twice as surly, and and does not cotton to the corruption of the guards, which gets him put in the hot box, but he can take it because he's the toughest one there is. And we get him coming in. As soon as the guard's out, he, of course, collapses because he's being all tough until the guard leaves, and then he can barely stand. And there's an old African-American gentleman who has apparently been in prison his whole life, which is, well, you know what? Not for nothing. This is actually a real issue. This idea of the permanent indentured servitude of various groups. This is actually, it always amazes me when I'm watching these episodes, and every so often you'll hit on a topic that you go, oh wow, that's actually a thing right now. This is something we're still dealing with, and now we're actually kind of addressing it.
Absolutely, and surprising that they were still, addressing it so boldly back then.
Mm-hmm. Well, as I've said, this show, for all of its 1970s and 1980s missteps, always tries to be very progressive. It's kind of, it's kind of like Star Trek in that sense. Star Trek really tried its darndest, as much as, a bunch of old white men can to be progressive. They did their darndest to be progressive. And I think the Hulk very much picks up on that and tries to do it as well, both in and I think a lot of that comes from that ripped from the headlines feel of a lot of these episodes, whether they're dealing with mental health crisis,
or the military-industrial complex,
or the prison-industrial complex, which wasn't even a thing yet, and here they have it right up front.
Now Sheriff Joe Arpaio might be going to jail.
Or
winning an election, who knows?
Well, we'll see what happens in the next couple weeks. We're shooting this prior to November. This is probably going to air right around Election Day, I would imagine, based on how far we're reading ahead. So anyway, so Blake, the doc says, "Oh well, you know a lot about stuff." He says, "Yeah, well, you're a doctor, right?" And he goes, "No, he just calls me doc because I give him aspirin." And
I can't even read the one first aid book we got.
Yeah, man, it's a rough go for Doc, but Doc is, of course, our majestic, noble, elderly person of color. In our storyline, because you always got to have one. You always have to have your proto Morgan Freeman here.
Exactly.
And David Shawshank. David helps him out, and they're like, oh well, Dave, you're just a short timer. You're here for 60 days. And as the cop says he's dropping off, it's like, dude, you'll do 60 days on your head. You're fine. And the truth is, I'm sure David's in there, yeah, I actually probably will be fine, Yeah, I don't want to do hard labor, but quite frankly, last episode I was picking beans in California, so I can dig a ditch here,
Isn't his normal gig working on farms to get by anyways?
Yeah, really, he does do that. I mean, well, because he is an undocumented laborer.
Migrant worker.
He's a migrant worker, Although, we do, it is our feeling that he does have money stashed away. He just, because it's 1979, he can't get to it. Which is one of this very fascinating aspects of this, that he does have to do all these things to get by, but he probably has, a few $1,000 squirreled away that he can access when he needs to. And probably that, the check he got from Wildfire it has gotten deposited at some point. I'm sure the guy didn't walk away from that. So in the prison, basically he walks in on the guys and they say, well, we're going to make the escape. Oh, and this I thought was important in this, because of course at the very start of it, the corrupt cop does say, look, I may not look like much, heck, I might not be much, but I can tell a man who's on the run. And so, if we had did this all legal, we could have, and basically saying, we are totally violating your rights. But let's be honest here. We both know you're a guy who's hiding from stuff. And if we take you in and do you proper and run your prints, something's going to come up. Not the least of which is actually the murder of that DA a couple episodes back. So, that he was implicated in when he escaped that the last time he got arrested. So, actually, that was 2 times ago he got arrested. Man, this guy gets arrested a lot.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, well, this, of course, is before you have FBI databases that can do insta checks and things. So, Jack McGee's job would be so much easier if this was, set today.
Yeah.
Or David would have to be a lot more cunning.
Or a hacker.
Yeah, so he does stumble upon the fact that they are about to, there's this escape attempt. He's like, hey, I'm cool, guys, don't worry, I'm not going to tell no one, I'm just here for 60 days. This is going to be like the next 3 episodes is me digging holes, man, I'm happy with that. And they're like, no, we can't trust that. You got to come with us. You're going to break out with us, or we're going to, or we're going to basically kill you right now.
Right.
And of course, David.
This talk of cutting his tongue out.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, they're going to be rough with him because these are hardened criminals, which is another question we can raise when we get to later on in the episode. But they go to. They're on the work line. When they have the chow break, they decide, 2 other guys make the distraction, and they decide to run. I'm always fascinated that whenever they do these prison things and they do make the escape, there's always 2 guys that are like, yeah, we'll be the distraction, sure.
Yeah.
We're going to cover your escape. We're not going to get to escape, obviously.
But we'll get in trouble for it, though.
Yeah. We'll totally take the heat for it, but yeah, you guys run. You guys go. So the fight breaks out. They all run, and they don't get very far before they try to undo their shackles, which is also a little weird because it's like they only ran 20 feet, and it's like all of a sudden the cops are on top of them. But of course, Burke, gets the jump on the commandant, puts him in the headlock and says he'll snap his neck if they don't drop their guns. They do eventually drop their guns, and then they run some more. And this is one of these things where it's like, why is David just not angry at any of this point? It's like, no, this isn't outrageous enough yet. I'm not angry yet. This is
right. He's so jaded that it hasn't moved him yet, even if he wanted to. The Hulk is like, I'm busy. Call me when it gets really bad.
Yeah, but for what it's worth, it's like he's been on hold and then at Hulk out. It's like this is people with guns pointed at him and he's not hulking out. It's like we get, and then we'll get that again in a little bit where and again it's just this inconsistency of the Hulk outs. It's always this thing where I'm like, really, that doesn't cause a Hulk out, you know, or it's like it's either really that's what causes him to Hulk out, not that not this other thing. And this is one of these episodes where we have things that don't really make a lot of sense why they cause the Hulk out, and other things that like, well, that really should have caused the Hulk out, you know?
Right.
So they do run. David does Hulk out when they do a tumble. And a snake comes. I'm not even sure the snake bites him.
It bites him. It bites him right on the arm.
Oh, it does bite him on the arm. Okay, so the snake does bite him, and that's what causes the Hulk.
Right, because at first he falls off like this silly bridge that's meant to cover, like, you know, so you don't have to walk 3 feet below. It's just like a silly bridge. There's no reason for the bridge to exist. He falls off this tiny bridge, and he's like, oh well. And then the snake bites him, and then that's when he hulks out.
Yeah, then he hulks out, and he picks up the guy, and he goes to run, and he does come, and of course they cross the road, the cops catch him, and he puts the guy down, and the Hulk hides in a tree, which is just weird. It's like the Hulk's behavior in this is just very weird, because then he jumps down, he throws the Jeep in the ditch, and picks up the guy, and he runs again. Now, in previous episodes,
he never wants to hurt anybody.
Well, no. And I'm not faulting the Hulk for not wanting to hurt anybody. I don't know why he didn't just run the rest of the way to California.
Right.
You know, we've seen the Hulk cover miles when he's in the Hulk form running. You know, and then when he's runs again 20 feet, and then okay, let's stop. Let's stop. I'm gonna chill. You know. And then, of course, you know, the cops come up. And, of course, even though, gee, you're completely naked. I wonder what happened to that green monster that had no shirt. You know, it's like no one ever connects, but sure.
No, nor does Blake think that's weird at all. It's like, hey, man, you just turned into a thing.
Well, Blake was unconscious.
Well, yeah, kind of, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, that's that. You know, the Hulk is like Invisible Boy from Mystery Men. He can only turn when no one's watching.
Right.
You know, he's very Hulk. That's the problem. Is Banner is very Hulk shy. He can't let the Hulk out when people are watching him. He has to be all alone, and then just the slightest thing will do it. But when people are watching him, it's like, oh goodness, no.
Yeah. I can't Hulk out if you're watching.
Yes. So of course they get pulled back. They get put into the hot box. Burke tells them how to survive the hot box. You know, suck on a stone and find a cold place in the corner and just toughen up. And again, this is not in any way angering or outrageous to Banner, but
right. Because I just kept thinking, how long is it going to be before he hulks out? And it's too big for the box, and that would be a cool scene, but it never happened.
No, we didn't get that. But you know, and then we'll get to that the next Hulk out in a minute. But anyway, so as it turns out, one of the guards basically tipped off the press, and you know they're gonna stage a riot, and then Banner talks him out of doing the riot and says, "Don't stage a riot, just make a petition, because that always works." But we'll slip the petition to the reporters, and the reporters will know what our grievances are. And, of course, they decided that they're going to give David the honors of giving the petition, which causes a problem because, of course, who's the reporter on this beat?
Good old Jack McGee.
Good old Jack McGee. And, one of the most underutilized Jack McGee moments ever. I mean, just so painfully underutilized. and honestly, you know, I don't know about you, but I kind of watching that. I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, Jack Colvin's kind of annoyed to be on set today, isn't he? He's coming in okay, so I just wander right past David, and I never see him, and I don't even question this. And they actually even, I was actually waiting for him to come back, you know, to do some deeper digging.
Right.
You know, and no, nothing. It's like, because he even says, that's, I don't think we saw everything as they drive off.
Everything. Right.
Yeah, but of course, they give.
He's like, but I think I'm not satisfied.
Because they say, give it to that McGee fella. He's like, no, I can't. And then Burke takes it to go give it, and then of course he gets hit in the back of the head, and of course Jack McGee showing the the legendary reporter Chops that made him famous completely ignores that fact and continues walking, which of course leads to Burke being put into the hot box again, and David being made an offer by the which I also thought was the warden, which I also thought was kind of weird because again, he is a short timer, you know.
Right.
I don't know how useful it is. We'll take some time off your sentence, which means it's like, unless you're going to tell me, hey, why don't you just go home now? You know? Which actually, not for nothing, would have been the smartest thing to do there. Just like, you know what, David, why don't you just go home? You know, you're here illegally. We all know that. And, you know, look, it's a mess here. Why don't you just go home? You know, you're a smart guy. Go home. Don't come back. You know, don't cause problems. But
That would have been the smartest move with Blake, too. He's just rabble-rousing and causing the other inmates to get crazy. So let him go, too, I think. I mean...
Well, Blake's on a 5-year sentence. I mean, that's the thing, is Blake actually has some time on this. I don't think it's for parking tickets. That sounds like he had you know, a few leaves of marijuana in his pocket when he got arrested. So, you know, we're talking about a hardened criminal here, my friend.
Right, indeed.
So David refuses to be the clerk, and of course, in retribution, the guard who walks in back says, "Thanks for all your help, partner." So, which of course immediately brands David as a snitch. Then they have the guys.
A fink.
Yeah, a fink. That's correct. My mistake. I was using the wrong parlance. They have him. They name him a fink, and you know, it's interesting because again, you know, they have the guys after the reporters have left. They have everyone get out of those clean clothes because we still have work to do, and they're digging out the Jeep the Hulk tossed over the bridge. And again, here we have this thing where, you know, they're doing. I'm waiting for a Hulk thing. It's like, oh, I'm lifting the thing. I'm stressing. I'm angry, but not nearly angry enough. And then one of the guys like takes the shovel and like jams him in the leg, which again doesn't trigger a Hulk out. Remembering that the first time he got a Hulk out was because he like accidentally, you know, scratched his arm while he was changing a tire. You know, it's like, really? Anyway, so he doesn't get a Hulk out. They go back to the... but prior to this, he does realize who the real Fink is. Who is... what was his name? Harris, yes. Harris is the real Fink. Played by Charles Pisserini. Just want to see real quick what else Charles has done. He looks familiar.
Yeah, he sees Harris accepting money from the sheriff's second-hand man, the guy with the aviators.
Oh, well, this is...
And so he knows...
You know what? Here, this is fun, because I always love when we can tie this back to stuff. He is a stuntman. He has been on Torchwood, which is a big Doctor Who thing. And this is great. He's been on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as a stunt driver in A Wanted Inhuman and Shadows. He was also in Fantastic Four, doing stunts there. Yeah, you know, so this guy, he gets around, so good for him. I love when we can tie it back to Marvel stuff. Oh, he was in the 2003 Daredevil. Doing stunts. Yeah, man, this guy gets around, man. Okay, good. So
I'm glad to see him working.
Yeah, well, I love that. Yeah, this guy's all over the place. Yeah. Oh, he was in a bunch of Mike Hammers throughout. That was actually when we got to the 90s. So what did he do in the 80s? This guy works all the time. Yeah. He was in V. He was in Hill Street Blues. Yeah. Well, this is what it shows you. You know, if you have a skill in Hollywood, you can actually find yourself working a lot. You know, Charlie's Angels, he did stunt work. Oh, he was in Chomps in doing stunt work. He was on the Rockford Files, Starsky and Hutch, Kojak, Bionic Woman.
Wow.
Yeah, this guy got around, so good for him. Anyway, so he was our real Fink, not David. And of course, what he does is Doc doesn't want to believe him, but he says, let me show you. And he calls the guy over and he says, hey, look, me and some of my friends, we're going to rush the gate at the changing of the guards at 11:30. I could use some help. And of course, he says, I'm not going to help you. And walks away. But then he tells Doc, look, watch the gate. You'll see that they're going to be prepping for me to make my break. And, of course, what's ironic about this is actually David does rush the gate at 11:30, though not in the way he had intended. Because, of course, the other prisoners decide it's time to teach the Fink a lesson. Mm. And this is one of these things, again, where it's like, wait, where did that Hulk come from? We were just standing here beating this man to death, and all of a sudden this big green monster grabbed me by the neck. It's like... Yeah,
where did he come from? Who put that there?
Yes, so that's strange. But, yes, so... And again, this thing...
I love this scene. Yeah. I love this scene because it's back like, what was it, Full Metal Jacket? Mm-hmm. Where they beat him with the ball.
Yeah.
We get that scene, and then I thought that was a really, really fun Hulk out.
It was a fantastic Hulk out, one of the best, without a doubt. And then, of course, just the destruction he causes. I mean, this is what you have a Hulk for. He breaks...
Right, and then we finally get the destruction of the hot box, which was fun, too.
Yes, the hot box gets torn open. And, it's fun, because it's like, I'm waiting for, it was kind of weird, because, like, the Hulk kind of, like, after he knocks over the guard towers, opens up the hot boxes, smashes some spotlights, busts down the gates, and he seems to run off, and then all the prisoners, like, they grab some, like, wood, but all the cops, all the guards have, like, rifles, so it's like, what are they going to do? I'm waiting for, I'm like, are they really going to open fire on a, on a family hour show in ABC in 1979? But no, of course, what happens is the Hulk does come back, picks up the warden, and hits the other guards with the warden. And that's pretty amazing. And basically the criminals take over. Some of the criminals run, obviously. And Burke says, "No, I'm going to stay here because I'm going to stay here and tell the world." And then our final scene after the Hulk went off is David getting picked up by a hitchhiker. He sees in a paper, which sadly wasn't the National Register. It was, like, I guess, the local legitimate paper. Basically saying, prison officials indicted, and, they show the car driving past the chain gang. We see that Harris is still working on the chain gang. I couldn't tell if any of the other guy, if like the warden was on the chain gang or not. I didn't see him, but
I didn't see any of the guys either. The sense I got was it was just another chain gang.
Yeah, it was just another
chain gang. The moral, like, the injustice will always go on, and if you can get out, get the hell out,
Yeah. Oh, our warden, Captain Holt, he was all throughout the 80s, too. He was in, Street Hawk, Hill Street Blues, T.J. Hooker.
T.J. Hooker.
Oh, wow, this is always fun. Oh, man, I totally missed this. So, our warden, Captain Holt, he played, in Alice in Disco Land, he was Ernie. He's Captain Holt in the Slam, and then he comes back in 1980 in 9 Hours as Joe LoFranco. Oh, I love when we get those crossovers. That's always fun. Okay. So, that's our episode tonight, I think. Final thoughts, Phil.
Mozz.
Oh, Mozz. What? I'm sorry.
No worries. But yeah, no, I thought this episode was really fun. It was one of my favorites. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this was just a fantastic episode. Honestly, it's one of the only real downer to the episode was the underutilization of Jack Colvin. And it's kind of like one of these things where you kind of feel, like I said, it seemed to me like Jack Colvin was just annoyed to be on set that day. It's like, really, I know you guys don't need me every episode, but you're going to drag me in. I mean, obviously he has his contractual obligations. I mean, for what it's worth, Jack Colvin is, he's got pay or play on these. So they do have to use him. I mean, technically they don't have to use them, but because they're paying him every episode anyway, they want to use him.
Right. And I sense there must be some frustration on his part for the lack of depth in his character, you know?
Yeah, well, and every so often, like in Mystery Man, in The Confession, we do get some real good Jack McGee episodes, but this was not one of them. This was definitely a contractual obligation episode.
Yeah, he was just a prop.
Yeah. So, Mozz, if anyone would like to reach out to you, become friends with you, talk to you about the wild world of the Incredible Hulk or anything else, how can they reach out to you?
Just find me on Facebook as Mozz Manzoor, Mozzmanzoor.
Yep, and be sure to listen to Mozz Manzoor talk Luke Cage on the Cage Cast. Enough said right here on the Southgate Media Network. Yeah, and I hear you have a great co-host on that, Mozz.
Yeah. He spells he has two S's in his name.
Yes.
It's for quality.
Yes, and two E's.
And two E's.
Yes, and of course, you can listen to me on many podcasts here on the Southgate Media Network, including Podcast of Tomorrow and, of course, All New Marvel Roundup and the Super Connectivity Podcast, of which I get my email address, which is superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And follow me on Twitter as I live tweet various shows, including The Incredible Hulk, but not tonight, because I'm actually recording this podcast while The Incredible Hulk is on at 7 o'clock on Saturdays on MeTV. And follow me at Charlie Esser, that's CharlieEsser. Look for the two E's and the two S's in the middle for quality. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for hulking out with us. Please hulk out with us again. Good night.
We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80s Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80s Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80s Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at southgatemediagroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.